Welcome to Your Fertility Story. Today, Maria is speaking with Irina Kaufman.
Hey, I'm so excited for you to hear this interview with Irina. We had another interview with her several years ago, almost 3 years ago. It's when she just had her babies, went through surrogacy, actually in two countries, Ukraine and America. And I wanted to come back to her because Irina has a gift of being really transparent and raw about her experiences and what it means. And she possesses the outlook and certain wisdom that I think if you're in a fertility journey, especially if you're going through some hard ups and downs, you would really appreciate her perspective. So let's jump in.
When you've been successful in other things, whether that's been your career, whether that's been a sport, whatever you've been, or like financially, when you've been successful at other things, it's really hard to find yourself in a situation where no matter how hard you try or no matter what you do, you feel like you're not succeeding. You don't know how to function in that world.
Right. And so what do you do? I feel like, well, you've been through that, right? And I think you probably struggle. I remember you struggling with that. What was the turning point, maybe at which point you relax or let it go? Or did you ever let go? Is it even possible when you...
I don't think I ever relaxed because I was worried till the last moments. I didn't believe that it could work out. But I think two things helped me through. One is you put a team around you that you really trust. That's the biggest difference of you're playing, even if you're playing a sport, if you have a team around you in this that you really, whether that's your partner, your family, your coordinator, your doctor, whoever that is, building that team around you that you actually want to work with. As bad as it is, I enjoy the phone call. You look at your calendar and you're like, I'm going to talk to them today. That's actually nice. And if I'm feeling down, there's someone to call that I like speaking to. So I think that is really important. And then the other one that helped me is knowing that I was willing to do anything to have a healthy child at the end, not a healthy pregnancy, not a healthy get pregnant. So people worry about that pregnancy test. I gave up worrying about that.
Mm-hmm.
It was I want to see that child at 1 and 2 and 3. And I still have moments, people get really sad. They grow up so fast and you look at the baby picture. And one gift that the fertility struggle gave me is I don't really get sad about it because I remember so many people don't get to see 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm very grateful that even though it goes fast and that's sad, how much I wanted that 2 and 3 and 4 and whatever. So I think those two things help let go in a sense. But I was stressed. I'm still stressed. So I don't think I'm ever going to let it go.
Well, maybe step by step, I don't know what to say. So you found your way of coping, and I think some of us are finding whatever it is, fair, medium, or harmony sooner, and some never find, but there is something, at least maybe the realization. I think the moment also you realize, gosh, I'm driving myself crazy right now. What can I do? Maybe that's the beginning. I don't know. Hey, we jumped in right now because we were just talking, before even hitting the record button. And I'm like, oh my God, Irina, you're saying so much, so much gold. Let's just maybe right now bring people in just a little bit about your background. How did you end up in surrogacy? And really almost 3 years now past surrogacy where you are. So would you share just a couple words?
Yeah. So we have an older son who's 16 now, had a pregnancy I carried, and then career and other things in life was focused on it, ended up pregnant and miscarried, and then had a series of miscarriages right at the start of COVID, and things are shutting down and you're going into appointments, hearing bad news, starting IVF. And so I went on the journey of had my own pregnancy, even though it was high risk, many years, then got pregnant naturally, miscarried, and had a lot of struggles. And then after I think the second or third miscarriage, tried to look at what are the other ways, because in the process, you're getting older, the world was shut down. So all these things. And again, you're trying to look for things you can control. And my way of controlling things is I wanted to know next steps. So often when you hear about a loss or something's not working, it's take time to process. My way of processing is having a plan.
I remember. You could almost, I feel like even as anticipation, you would already like, if this doesn't happen, Maria, what is the next step? I remember that.
Yes. And that is my way of coping.
Mhm.
My way of coping is not to sit in the grief, which for some people it is. It's to have deliverables and a plan. I'm a project manager, so I wanted that. And I would say, what are the steps? And surrogacy was one of the options. And I looked at all the options. We looked at adoption, we looked at different medical treatments, and then we looked at surrogacy and looked at surrogacy in different areas. We looked at critical path, program management, where is it, the resourcing that would need it, affordability, the time. I remember our first phone call, like, how long will it take? Because you get older, right? And our child was getting older. So looking at all those different sides of the equation and figuring out what are our options. And the other part of our story is we pursued multiple options at the same time
Mhm.
because nothing was working. And I wanted to hedge a little bit of like, what if all of it? So we pursued surrogacy in Ukraine. We then, with the war starting, even though it would take longer and be much more costly, pursued surrogacy in the US. And I also wanted to pursue my health. And it wasn't so much about me carrying at the same time or anything like that. It was, I need to understand what is wrong so I could be here for the children that hopefully one day are here. So I wanted to understand why, what is happening, why isn't it working? And I ended up doing a lot of different things, getting more embryos. I ended up having brain surgery to see if I had a pituitary tumor, if that was causing issues and miscarriages. So tried to pursue everything and then eventually ended up not through, and I've done transfers myself that I've miscarried, ended up doing a transfer in Ukraine of our last embryo during the war, very low graded embryo, probably our least likely to succeed embryo. We also at that time naturally got pregnant without a medicated cycle or anything. And I'd had many medicated cycles and many
It
perfect.
never happened. I know. It's like, I remember you saying,
Yeah.
like, what? Yay!
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was not medicated, natural pregnancy. And then we also did a transfer in the US. And our goal was we wanted two children and two surrogacies, and we only had one embryo left, ours in Ukraine at the time. And let's just try to do both. So we ended up with two surrogates pregnant at the same time, one in Ukraine, one in the United States. And I got pregnant in the midst of this, actually, in between those two. I found out that I was pregnant, but in my mind, I was not pregnant. In my mind, I miscarry at 9 to 12 weeks every time. So it doesn't even matter. And this one isn't even a tested embryo. And I'm in my mid 30s, 35, 36. Like, there is no way without medicine that this is going to work.
Mhm.
And luckily for us, and not luckily, it takes a lot of work. So it's not luck. There's a part of luck, but it was meant to be. It worked out, and we had three babies, one at the end of May, one 2 weeks later in Ukraine,
Yep.
and then another in the US in August of 23. So it was a very eventful year. But a really cute story we tell is when our first miscarriage happened in March 2020, right at the start of COVID lockdown, there was a nest that formed at our front door on like a wreath we had. There was a little nest that formed. There were three little eggs in it.
Mhm.
Bird nest. And my husband walked by kind of humming Everything's Gonna Be Okay by Bob Marley. And then when we ended up with three pregnancies at the same time, many years later, like 2.5 years later, he said, he's like, it was always supposed to be three. And throughout our journey, we actually had symbols. And I don't very much believe in all of this, but we had like little signals. And when we showed up at the hospital for me to deliver, there was like a artwork with the nest with three eggs in it. We're like, this is just, it's kind of all around us. So you gotta, there's a little bit of it's meant to be.
Yep, it absolutely was meant to be.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, so today I wanted to speak maybe less about like logistics of surrogacy,
Yeah.
but really maybe looking back. Okay, so you have three kids, and now you've been raising, parenting, three toddlers. So how is
It's hard.
parents? Okay, so talk about that, because some families also consider sibling journeys where maybe there is surrogates going at the same time. So give us highs and lows. What are the challenges of parenting toddlers?
So it's hard. Like multiple kids is hard. I have four kids. One is a teenager at the same time, massive age gap, and then a very small age gap. The good news is usually teenagers don't fight with toddlers. They don't disagree on toys. So that is good. Three littles at the same time, there's advantages. They play with each other now. You don't need as many play dates. Throwing a birthday party, super easy because your guests are built in and they show up on time and they know each other.
You don't need to entertain them.
You don't need to entertain in the morning. They still like sleeping in the same room. So they have cribs near each other. They talk to each other in the morning. If one's upset, the other tries to calm them down. So that's all great. But it's hard because you're in survival mode when they're really little and you have to feed all of them in hours. Like we knew which ones ate faster and one would feed two. And then my husband would feed the other. Like it is survival mode. You are outnumbered with three, even with two. It's very much like just get through the day. Is everyone happy and sleeping at the end of the day? It's not perfect. So if you want the experience of the perfect meal and tracking diapers and them all dressed and buttoned up with perfect hair, you don't get it.
Or going back to control. Remember, if you want to control your life,
No. Have one and have a lot of staff. So yeah, it's not perfect. They're all very different. So it's a lot of tension. You get to spend less time with your partner if you have a partner, and some people do this alone. I do not know how. I have a fantastic partner. We had to change our lives. I continued to work. I took a longer leave than you would ever imagine someone with my career taking. I never imagined I would take that long a leave. Went back in the middle, came back to home. My husband ended up leaving his job to stay home with the kids when I took a new job. I ended up taking something I was really excited about. I've been working on AI for most of my career. There was an opportunity to join OpenAI. I was so excited to do it. Had a great partner that decided, okay, this is your dream. Go do that. And he stays home with three kids. He's tired. Like the truth is, it's really hard. It's much harder than going to work. So,
and saying that. Thank you. I think many dads actually don't realize, right? Like you have role reversal, but typically, right, it's not like that. So thank you for saying it.
Oh no, it's so hard. I was home for Christmas, like Christmas and holiday break. Going back in January, it felt like I was going on vacation. I was like, this is nice. It's structured. I get into the office. I have a coffee. I know my meetings. People show up on time. They don't argue with me as much. Like it's really hard. It's more predictable. So it is very hard. You need to make time for your partner, and you should get help if you can. Let people help you. They don't know how to help. Obviously, I have a lot of family support. My mom still helps and dad, but let people help you. We've recently also have an au pair that moved in. That's helpful, but find ways to get support where you can. And not everyone can afford all of these options or have family around. So just understanding that it is not easy. It's not like Instagram. It doesn't look like that. You get this perfect picture of people arranged. That picture takes a long time to get. So I often send people the picture of like, this is the picture and this is the reality.
I love it. I think we also have the reminder. But also with this, I think if just like in the surrogacy journey, right? And we'll come back to the surrogacy and some things that you think people really need to think about. If you let go of the image of perfect and just say we're the best parents of the best kids and we just whatever we accomplish in a day, that's all, right? That's all we could do. And if you survive day by day, right? I think then looking back, like right now, if we were to look 3 years back, wouldn't you still say, gosh, it's easier. We made it.
We made it. The other thing that one of my regrets from the journey was I didn't take pictures because it was so hard and I didn't want to believe it. I didn't take those, not just pictures, but the moments. I didn't appreciate the moments, even the hard ones. Like now we were just reminiscing that we had donors that didn't work out and surrogates that didn't work out. And each one was so devastating that I didn't even.
It was.
And one thing looking back, I remember one of my first miscarriages. I came in for a DNC. I had to have a DNC, and the nurse, my husband couldn't come in. Everything had shut down. So I come in alone. And I remember that nurse vividly. Don't know her. It was Stanford, big place. And she said, I know this day is really hard for you, but you're one day closer to holding your baby.
Wow.
And throughout the journey, I remember thinking to myself, every time everything went wrong, I was like, this gets me one step closer to what we really want. And if I don't go through this, I'm not one step closer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up seeing that nurse a couple more times for more miscarriages. So I think that's really important, that when you go through these like struggles, actually remembering, because now it seems we don't remember them. I wish I had appreciated my journey a lot more than I did in the moment. I was just like, there's anger, right? That it's not fair. You see other people posting that they're pregnant or it's so easy or like, oops, like we have another. And I'm like, are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
and it's hard to go to baby showers. It's hard to celebrate. Even if you're happy for the person, it's hard to celebrate. So I wish I had seen like a little bit more clear that like my journey is going to be special in its own way. But I did do one thing really well. I was always very appreciative of what I did have.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never like, whoa, me, it's only me. I was very positive, and I don't know if you agree with this. I was positive that I had a partner that was very supportive, and I knew so many people don't. I was positive that parents that were supportive. I was positive that like I had an older child that like saw the struggle and how hard you have to try for something that you really want. That I had the resources to explore. I had healthcare. I was able to create embryos, like all these things that were in my favor. I was focused on that and less focused on all the things that were bad.
I love that. I love that. Could we talk a little bit about like because you touched on donor, okay? And you said, yeah, we had I remember going through the process where it was just bizarre things happening.
Yeah.
One donor didn't work out or like it was approved, fell off, and there was just so many things happening.
Yeah.
And now, and I think, before the call, you were saying, so obviously you have, kids with a different genetics, but you said something brilliant that you don't feel any different, like in your attitude to them, in your connection to them. Talk us through that.
Yeah. So, first of all, we have three toddlers or little ones that are all genetically ours, right? We ended up not using our donor embryos, but completely look different and act different. You would never be able to like tell. So, genetics are not always very telling of this. But in all of these, there's a child I carried physically and two that surrogates carried, and the older one I carried. The one that is closest to me in terms of follows me around, like very sympathetic to me, is not the one I carried. It is actually Lily, who the whole pregnancy developed in Ukraine while I was in the US. So I was not at a single appointment. The embryo was not near me. The first time I met the surrogate gestational mother was at the hospital after delivery. But the bond we have is the closest. It's funny, like you love all your children the same. Like that is just true. And if you're a parent, you know that. But there are just some that gravitate. There's ones that gravitate to my husband. There's ones that gravitate to my mom. But Lily from Ukraine gravitates towards me. And I know a common question when you think about surrogacy, adoption, other means of building family is, will I feel the same way about this child as if I carried, especially if you're in a situation where you did carry an older child or a different child. And I will say, and I had that question. I think we have to be honest that you always have that question if you're human. And I absolutely think you will not. Like, I do not feel any differently at all.
Mhm.
And I think there's something someone said that two things stuck with me. First of all, kids through adoption surrogacy are so wanted. The struggle you go through to get that is like intense. They are so wanted and so appreciative of what it took.
Mhm.
There's a video of Ivana handing me Lily that I still look back and like tear up. And like only recently I could show Lily that video. She's like, me. And you can see that like moment of what it is, like very special and as special, if not more, than the moments you see of women delivering a child. Like if you look at my face in that video, and I don't want to publicize the video because you could see the pain through the joy. So yeah, it's very special moment. So I remember when people had said that to me.
Mhm.
And you have to like these glimpses are very
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, so if anyone is, let's say, selecting a donor, right?
Mhm.
And we're trying to envision and think like what the perfect thing would be.
Yeah.
And I remember you were in that position as well, right?
Yeah.
Like you were picking and picking and and rightfully so. But if you were to give yourself maybe advice from looking now, what would you say?
So yes, because when you have no control over things, it's really easy to grasp onto the things you can control. And you feel like selecting a donor, selecting a surrogate, selecting an agency are things you can't have control over. So you tend to like hyper focus on the control you do have. And I spent a lot of time looking at different profiles. This one looks like my sister. This one, I like the career they have. This one, whatever I could grasp onto. And ultimately, I kept telling myself, I was like, I'm not perfect either. I don't know that I would choose myself as a donor. And like, I didn't even question that one. Like my health is obviously not perfect. And then if you're getting to this, your health might not be perfect. Then you're looking at this donor and going like, everything needs to be perfect. There's no perfect human. And we know on paper, like it's just a part of a story. What I would tell myself is anyone that is willing to do this already has a huge heart.
Yeah.
Do this. Things tend to work out the way they need to. We had a perfect donor that had great results before and then looked just like me, I believe, like
Yeah,
looked very
I
similar,
remember.
tall, like background the same. And the round just had a bad result. Very few. And I think we transferred one, it didn't work. And I just think it's like meant to be. So the thing I would tell myself is what's gonna be is gonna be. If you have a gut feeling that this might be a match, go for it. If it's not meant to like work out, it won't. Like
Of course.
the embryos won't be created, they won't stick, it won't work.
Yeah. All right. You also mentioned briefly, Surrogacy Ukraine, Surrogacy America. Maybe without, because we had another podcast with you and, people could go listen to that in detail. But maybe, a couple things just you felt what were different, what were not. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I really appreciated about, and I'm very grateful to both surrogates that we partnered with. It's a very hard thing to do, and love our kids that happened from them. So would not change in any way that. The difference for me was I really appreciated that it was regulated in Ukraine. That's like what I tell my friends that are considering surrogacy. It's really important to understand the regulation and how different places manage surrogacy. So that I really appreciated. The other thing is there's such value of working with a team that you trust. And I had that in one scenario and didn't in the other. And there's a big difference. You think it's all the same. I'm only going to have to work with these people for 9, 10, 15 months of this. That is just not true. You will always remember how this made you feel. That won't go away. This is the story of your child coming to this world, so you're not going to forget. So picking a team that matters really does matter. It is not just the like dollars and cents and the numbers. And I remember looking at the numbers between agencies. I'm like, that's not the only metric you should use. And I think US, it varies by state as well, which it was very confusing. So there's things you can control, things you can't. But the team really, you can't control what team you have. That is one thing you control. It actually goes back to your last question about picking a donor. One thing I did that really helped, and I do this in my career, is trust the experts. I really believe in trusting people that have experience. If you want to talk about program management, AI, come to me. I will talk to you about it. I know how to do that. If you're going to talk about surrogacy, picking a donor, picking in how to do this, talk to the people that do this every single day. And I think I did that. I think I did call you and your team and I said, guys, you look at way more donors and surrogates than I do. What would you pick? What would you do? And I think the same thing for my fertility doctor. You see way more cases.
Yeah.
What would you do? And so I think trusting experts is really important, no matter where you work. But I had a very different experience in Ukraine versus the US.
Thank you for saying that. And can I also, like, when we're saying trusting, it doesn't mean that, we all like smiling all the time and singing lullabies. I remember we had some tough conversations with you as well, because, right, like when things don't go perfectly, and yes, some journeys go, everything is success on the first try, easy journey. I don't know why it's happening, but there are some journeys just like yours that were hard. Right? For whatever reason, things were not falling apart. And again, going back to your whole idea, it was probably meant to be. And the moment it was that meant to be, and 3 kids were supposed to appear almost immediately, at the same time, it happened. So we had our tough conversations. So I think maybe sometimes people mistaken trust and like that perfect smiley relationship versus, when you have like heated arguments and tough things. Like, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I think it started, and I hope you feel the same way. It started from a level of like trust and knowing who the person is.
Mhm.
Of, hey, I trust that I could show up as my authentic self. And like I knew that no matter how honest, I don't think I called and yelled, but I do think I was pretty forceful of like, I am really upset and I'm
Yeah.
crying and this is not okay. Knowing that the team won't dump you. And I think that goes back to like having that team around you of like, I can be my vulnerable self
Mhm.
and be like, this is really upsetting. I'm very upset and mad. I think there was something when the contract and I didn't agree with something and I called you. I was like, I'm really upset by this line.
Mhm.
And knowing that it's like two-way, that you can be honest and the people aren't going to be like, well, when we don't want to work with you. And
Mhm.
I never felt that no matter what I say, you were going to be like, well, then we're not interested. What really helped me, both working with you all as well as the fertility doctor I eventually worked with, was that like, we're in it until we accomplish this.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
That's
in it
it.
with you. And especially given the war, I saw so many agencies go away.
Mhm.
And I told Greg, my husband, I said, I feel like they're in it with me. And I think even when I was dealing with stuff in the US, and I don't
Yeah.
think we were actively transferring in Ukraine, I called you to help. And I called my attorney. I was like, hey, I have this. And I felt like you guys weren't in it to as a business. It was in it like, we have a goal together. We do not care how you accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
And I remember being scared to tell people I was pregnant for many reasons. And especially in agency, because you guys had worked so hard. And I was supposed to not be able to get pregnant.
You were calling and saying, please don't get mad. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Are you kidding? Like, this is the biggest, the best
Yeah.
news. I actually have one more case where, yes, mom got pregnant as well, out of the blue
Yeah.
afterwards. Maybe the moment you relax or something, I don't know what happens.
Yeah.
But no, no, that was like the best news ever.
Yeah. And I appreciate that when I usually send a note, but like, oh, here's like Lily, and here's like, and you always all ask about all three
Yeah,
babies.
yeah.
And never Lily and just Lily. So I think that's really, really special. So it goes back to that team that there's a shared goal together, however we get to it. So I think that's why we were able to have the hard conversations and still end up working as one team. I actually don't think it would have worked as well if it was always like at the surface level and happy, because that's not realistic.
Well, at least it was not realistic for you. But some, again, like I want to stress that
Good for them.
it's a just easy piece of cake, and I don't know why it's getting this way. But I also think that maybe, if you believe in God, God is teaching you, believe in the universe or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're giving those challenges because we have to grow through them. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think as your growth was mentally? Like, what did you learn from that as a human?
Yeah, I think one thing is that you're tougher than you think you are.
Yeah.
So like I knew pretty much that I could like tackle, but you don't know how much pain you can take. But for me, now I have so much more empathy for people building family. You're naive, right? My first pregnancy, pretty smooth. Like you're naive to how hard this is. So you're so much more appreciative of
Mhm.
the situation. It's a little bit easier on the hard nights when they're like waking up in the middle of the night, reminding yourself how much you wanted it. Easier to get up and do those late night feedings when they're little because you want it to be there. So that's harder. So you definitely you learn who will stand by you. So I very much learned not just the friends that'll come celebrate successes. I have one friend who eventually figured out when I was miscarrying because I just would go quiet. Like
Mm.
she's like something's up. And when you go through those hard moments or a loss or something's not working, you don't laugh. It's hard to laugh.
You
It's hard to
cannot.
smile. And you always remember that first time you laughed coming out of that bad moment.
Mm.
And that's any grief. And I remember her delivering this massive box to my front door. She didn't say anything. She left. And
Mhm.
with these massive pads in it for like the miscarriage and books with curse words to color.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
and I just started laughing. And she just got me to laugh. And she wrote a note in there that said, only a really good friend could deliver this kind of package.
I love
Like
that. I
a
love
friend
that.
that really knows you, that won't judge. So I think holding on and you learn these lessons, your resilience, who will stick by you. Not only in it's easy to be by someone when everything is great. It's easy to come to the baby shower and celebrate and like take the pictures. it's really hard to constantly hear from people. And this person like had so many phone calls around like, which agency do I choose? What do I? So you really learn who your friends are. So I'm a glass half full person, and now I get to talk to a lot of people that are struggling with fertility. And I think that's a gift I got because I would have never been able to like help others in any way. So
Well, thank you so much for paying it forward. And I think it's really needed because, as you were mentioning, you were quiet about miscarriage. And I bet it's not only because it's hard to talk to, but I think in a world where you feel like no one could understand you, right?
yeah.
Like who around you is going through miscarriages, who around you is going through surrogacy. You feel so isolated and you don't know what's safe or not. And it's really hard to be alone. So thank you for being that support for other people around you. If you don't mind, because you mentioned about AI, open AI, and everything, I want to tap in just a little bit. It has nothing to do with the surrogacy or anything. What role do you think AI would and could and already is playing, in the medical field? Like when you were starting, with me, through the fertility journey and then surrogacy, AI was not as widely used or rolled out yet, but now it is. If you were to have this tool back then, would you have used it? If yes, how? And what, like, just.
Yeah. So I got into AI a really long time ago in 2012, before it was like really, and even before that, exploring. And one of the reasons was because I felt like there were challenges in the world that could not be solved in any other way. But there needed to be something change, like game changing. And AI was one potential. Did work on health AI for a little bit and some projects there. So I actually saw like the link really early on. Before we had examples of how AI could be used, I actually wish some of our tools existed when I was going through fertility to ask some of these questions. I wish I could like upload some of these like medical files I had and been like, which blood work should I get? How do I figure it out? I wish they existed. They were just coming to be. I remember working on Gen AI while I was expecting, and I was actually rushing to get things out before I delivered. So it was a really magical time. It was also very hard. I'm going to remind folks, it was hard to go on mat leave while this revolution and like this
Happening.
space happening
Oh my
that I
God.
had worked my entire career for. And then like, but you work just as hard to have your family. So I was very intentional of taking that time. But I do think it has this ridiculously great potential that didn't exist before, whether it's an LLM, a model you can talk to when you're going through these. Because to be about being quiet, it wasn't even so much like who would understand me. It was, I didn't want to make other people uncomfortable.
You're right. That's a
I
good,
don't want to make other people uncomfortable all the time.
right.
Talking
Because you
about,
deal with that pain, right? And others can take your pain only so much until there's like, oh, she's going. Let me like pretend I'm on a phone call.
yeah. So like I didn't want to burden others. So having something you can talk to about how you're feeling, what are the options? Luckily, I had a team, but not everyone has the resources to have all these people around them that are experts. So doing that research would have been great, being able to synthesize so many medical records. I remember sending you and your team medical records that were in a different language, right? When you're doing surrogacy abroad and being like, what does this mean? Like, and I understand Ukrainian and Russian to some extent, but like if you can't understand, even if you do understand the language, you might not understand the medical terms, being able to explore that, it's a game changer and
Mhm.
it's an equalizer for folks. So I think it has so much more potential. I've thought a lot about how we select embryos, how we select donors, like actually talking through, we just talked about it, like these profiles. These are the things I'm considering. How should I think about it? Having a thought partner
Mhm.
in these scenarios is really hard because sometimes you also get up in the middle of the night and you're like racing, your head is racing about like, what should I do? Luckily, if you're working with someone in a different time zone, that's actually good timing. But if not, and you're the only one awake, to be able to brainstorm. So I'm still very much excited about the potential to solve unsolved problems and to be like a thought partner in these scenarios, and also talk about things you don't potentially want to tell someone. So, for example, let's say you're thinking about, I don't want to keep doing this. Like,
Mhm.
it's too much. I don't want to do that. It's kind of hard to admit that, I'm sure, for people. I never had that situation, but I am sure that's hard to admit, especially when you've spent maybe tens of thousands of dollars.
Like you were saying in US, you were saying don't start it unless you have 200,000 stashed away, even if it's priceless, because things could go not the way you
Yes.
planned, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so how do you deal with that?
So definitely, I we talked about this earlier. When I think about budgeting, and I'm pretty like thoughtful about project management things. In the US, unless you have 200, 250K, even if it doesn't cost that much, I would not start because what happens is you approach that number, whatever number it is. Let's say someone tells you, oh, it's going to be 120K. As you approach 120K, it's going to get stressful. No matter what number you operate under, as you approach that number, the last like 10% gets very stressful. And having something, if it's less, you're going to be happy. You're going to be like, great, I didn't spend all of it. So giving yourself that realistic number
Yeah.
of what it could cost up to is really, really important to reduce. There's so many other stressors. And when you're approaching the birth of your child, hopefully, the last thing you want to be doing is figuring out if you can afford the travel to get there or the gift for the surrogate at that moment. Like you don't want to be nickel and diming at that point or nickel and diming on like, let's say they need formula that's special. You don't want to actually be worried at that point. So I think budgeting is really important. And also you can use AI for some of these budget planning.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
like not all of us have master's degrees in finance. And I remember how many spreadsheets we had and like tracking how we're gonna, you can actually do that and track and get questions you don't know. What other, for example, I often go, what else should I be thinking about?
Yep, that's a great question. Yeah, so what should I ask, right?
What should I ask?
We used to like remember we used to like brainstorm with you, like we would be preparing for the meeting with the doctor, and we're like, okay,
Yeah,
well, this would be great questions to ask. Let's figure it out. But you could have, yeah, used some of those tools to brainstorm and then come prepared. I think it
yeah.
helps. And maybe also like at the beginning you start with a sense of control. Perhaps having this thinking partner also
Yes.
gives you a greater sense of control.
Yes, it gives you control and you feel it's always hard to work on something you've never done before. And hopefully, for most people, they don't have to do this many times. So it's very new for so many of us. And you also don't want to upset people, right? You don't want to insult anyone or you don't want to look stupid and ask the wrong question. So I think coming prepared, this gives you, again, something you can control and come prepared for. And all like I remember reading a lot of books and like people would give you recommendations and it was kind of overwhelming. So it's also for me been very, and obviously I know some of the tools better than others, having projects and being like, this is this project or this effort I'm working on, and all the information is together. And it has like memory of things you talked about. Because it's also really hard when you're working with agencies and different surrogates and different fertility doctors rehashing your story every single time, depending on the person, is very,
Yeah.
very hard.
Mm-hmm.
And having something that remembers that you're not constantly starting from, let me tell you where I'm at, and then go,
Again.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, just, in closing, what would you want, maybe one thing people to walk away who are dealing with the fertility or considering fertility,
Yeah.
specifically surrogacy? What would you say?
First, it's really important to know not alone. Like you don't have to do it alone. Like it really, whether it's people around you already, others that want to help. So many of us that have gone through fertility or surrogacy are looking for ways to help, right? I call you constantly and message you like,
Yeah,
how can I support in
yeah,
any possible way? So people do want to help, but you have to be able to ask people for what you need. I say this also at work, like people cannot read your mind. They do not know what you need. So asking is
yeah,
really important and being really focused on what end result you want. The end result might not be a pregnancy. The end result might actually be that child
yes.
or a healthy family or a happy family. So really being focused on what you want and letting go of control a little bit.
Uh,
And saying what'll be, will be. It's really hard. I'm the worst at it. Having this belief, like some, I guess, like hope. I think it's really hard when you're in the midst of it to have hope, but there's
Especially
always,
hope have been kind of tested several times, right?
yeah,
Because it's not the first, like when you going the first time and you have the hope,
yeah,
and then let's say it's a miscarriage or no pregnancy, you in a down deep, but then you still have a hope. But I think if you one of the unlucky people who had it several times deep, that's where you
oh,
like,
it's
how do
horrible.
you protect your heart and how do you
Yeah.
continue hoping?
Yeah, I recently looked at our WhatsApp group. We were chatting about something and I looked at the pregnancy test where it worked. And then I scrolled up to all the ones that did it.
Yeah.
And you kind of, it's hard. And like, it's very hard because obviously, if you have miscarriages, you don't replace those children. You remember every single one. But when you look at the end result, whatever that might be, and I look at Mackie and Lily and Luca, and I'm like, you were meant to be these kids. Like it was meant, like I would go through all of it over again to have these kids.
Yes.
Like they were meant to be together, one, and I see them play together, and it was always supposed to be that way. And I agree. So as you scroll through that like message chain and you see all these negatives or all these, just, there's going to be a message that you're going to hold on to, which is going to be that positive message. But you need all those bad messages first sometimes to get to that message. But then, you know what? It means so much more. Like
Yeah.
not, I really hope everyone has that easy journey, the
That's
first
what
one
we always
first.
hope. Yep.
That's
Yeah.
I would never wish this on anyone, but I do say that I appreciate it so much more based on what we went through.
Well, I'm so appreciative of you. And also, guys, if you're not watching it as a video, but you're just listening, I want you to really imagine, when I'm talking to Irina, she went through all of these hardships, right? And right now there is a vibrant, happy, like
Tired.
with joy. Tired, that's okay. You have 3 toddlers, that's fine. And you have, huge projects changing the world. But I remember meeting you before we started, and your eyes were so heavy, and now you completely different energy.
Yeah.
So, which means even if you go through hardships and your journey is not easy, it's not going to be like this forever. I guess that's what I want you to feel right now.
Yeah, I wish I knew this song before when we were going through it. I'm going to send it to you. There's a song by an artist I really love, and it talks about it's just a chapter in your story. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And I wish I had it during my journey because it would have really helped. But I think it's a chapter and it's not over until you decide that it's over.
Exactly. Well, so thank you so much. And for everyone in the journey, this is just a chapter, and your chapter is not over yet, just like Irina said. And we cannot wait for your good chapter to come. And it absolutely will. We believe in that with all of our heart. So
and thank you, Maria, for everything you do for everyone.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.